We must not forget the lesson of August 29th, declares a bilingual leaflet publicizing the East Los Angeles Chicano Moratorium, Marcha por Justicia, of January 1971. We must not allow the police to break our unity. We must carry on the spirit of Ruben Salazar and expose this brutality to the nation and to the world. Police brutality was routine to residents of East LA, and they knew it. Coppers heavily patrolled streets, ambushing residents, confronting Chicano youth, usually with no purpose other than to use abusive language and make use of their clubs. And as Mexican Americans were faced with blood-stained streets, their barrios turning into battlefields, the nation forced the community to face yet another front line as U.S. aggression in the Vietnam War heightened. We not only face genocide when they shove us into battlefields, but also when the police repress us on the streets of our own barrio. Mexican Americans began to disproportionately comprise large percentages of casualties in the war, and in combination with the social inequalities in America, they were prompted to act without hesitation. Making a stark correlation between U.S. aggression in Vietnam and to what they perceived to be U.S. aggression at home, Mexican Americans at large were convinced that their enemies were not the opposing Vietnamese forces, but rather the police. Described as inspiring more fear and hatred than the Viet Cong, the violence in the barrios had proven to be an injustice impossible to disregard, underscoring that the front line was not in Vietnam, but unquestionably on American soil. Tens of thousands of people flocked to the city for a Chicano Moratorium Committee demonstration to peacefully express their concerns with the draft and to stress their commitment to social justice. As the sun toiled overhead, 30,000 people made their way down Whittier Boulevard for 3 miles, held under heavy surveillance by Los Angeles Sheriff's Department officers, lined up along the route in full riot gear. A very beautiful expression of community, standing witnesses described as spirited marchers of Mexican military veterans, committed radicals, mainstream liberals, and families, from grandparents to infants in strollers, joined with fists in a Chicano power salute, chanting powerfully, "Chale no, we won't go," and Chicano power, bearing placards, carrying slogans, "Chale con la draft," "Bring the carnales home," and "Our war is here." After walking several hours, by 1 p.m., protesters entered Laguna Park. Exhausted but triumphant, the crowd sat and listened to musical performers before Rosalio Muñoz opened the post-march rally, proclaiming that a war for social justice had officially broken out in the barrios of East LA. Continuing to address the legacy of the major conflict, the demoralizing Vietnam War, Muñoz declared, "We have to begin organizing on the issue of police brutality." In retrospect, his remarks contained a tragic irony, as a short time afterward, the bulk of the demonstrators were running from the park in order to flee an assault by sheriff's deputies. At 3 p.m., a line of deputies appeared at the edge of Laguna Park. An earlier altercation at the Green Mill liquor store, more than a block away from the park, ignited an unnecessary police insurgence on the nonviolent rally. Confusion and fear, growing palpable within the formerly jubilant crowd, was only exacerbated as police, going beyond rationality, installing martial law, swarmed into the crowd without a word, swinging clubs, chasing the fleeing, running over women and children, kicking and stomping those who fought back, and firing tear gas canisters in every direction. Witnesses recalling, through all the smoke, all you could see was the batons going up and down, as fast as they could. For 2 hours, police brutality conquered the demonstrations surrounding East LA area, provoking the first violent Mexican-American outburst in a major U.S. city. All of the Chicano Moratorium Committee's intentions to maintain a peaceful protest vanquished as 158 businesses were destroyed, 400 people arrested, numerous people injured, and 3 tragically left dead: Lynn Ward, Angel Gilberto Diaz, and the most angering, Ruben Salazar. A Los Angeles Times news reporter, and by no stretch an activist, Salazar was well respected in the Chicano community, as he sought to explain the issues in Chicano communities, bridging the gap between Chicanos and the larger public. Salazar covered the march on the 29th, noting it as a symbol of great triumph before he was met with a deputy gunshot at the Silver Dollar Cafe, blocks from the park. His death horrified the community, as the violence now deprived them of a man who could best articulate the necessity for a peaceful pursuit of a long overdue social reform in the U.S. The widespread outrage over one of the movement's martyrs only further strained Chicano police relations, and in the face of sustained violence, Chicanos were proved unable to preserve their campaign for social justice, as many leading activist organizations dissolved in defeat. The protest, beginning as a pinnacle of organizational achievement, exceeding records of Chicano organized protests in 130 years of struggle, demonstrated the growing political consciousness of the broader Mexican community, evolved into a more serious setback as the ubiquitousness of police brutality prompted its devastating end, proving to be the dominant force. The demonstration on August 29th has taken on historic proportions, formed largely by the collective memory of the participants, perpetuated by a similar desire for change and for equality, even as the tragedy on that day symbolized the reverse, the brutal and repressive nature of the law enforcement, their unwillingness to countenance real change, and largely their crystallization of injustice in the United States.